Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is, well, it's not good, but it's also not as terrible as you may think. So let's talk about it. As always, this video will have spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, head over to my shorts, TikTok, or Instagram and check out my one-take movie review on this movie. But without further ado, let's talk about the final DCEU movie in Aquaman, the Lost Kingdom. So in this movie, we catch up with Aquaman as he is the king of Atlantis and also now has a son. But with the return of Black Manta, he must team up with his brother Orm and find a way to stop him. Jumping right into the good, and the first thing I have here is the brother dynamic between Aquaman and Orm. And this was easily the best part of the movie. I mean, you could just tell that Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson were just having so much genuine fun in their roles. All the fun in this movie came from them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they ad-libbed a lot of their lines because their chemistry was just that good. And their whole brother relationship in this movie was really the heart of everything and kind of held everything together for the most part. They both had this buddy cop vibe when they were together, and I just really enjoyed that. And I will say Patrick Wilson's Orm was probably the most interesting character in this movie. He goes on a bit of a redemption arc from what he did in the first movie, and it's honestly pretty solid overall, but sadly he is really the only character that gets any kind of development in this movie. Now, Jason Momoa was good and he was a joy to watch in this movie, but at the end of the day, he just played Jason Momoa, and outside of Manta, who I will get to in just a second, all the other characters just didn't have much to do in this movie. Anyway, moving on to the next good thing, and that is the action. Now, all the action scenes in this movie were pretty good, especially the fights between Manta and Aquaman, which were probably some of my favorite parts of the movie. The fight they had at the end when they were battling with tridents was just so cool. It was a one-shot and honestly was probably the most creative action scene they had in this whole movie. All the camera movements in that scene just enhanced every move that they did, and with the music in the background, the scene just felt epic. And just like in the first movie, all the scenes where the action took place were vibrant and colorful, so shout out to James Wann on that aspect of the movie. Moving on to the so-so, and first up I have Black Manta. Now, I liked Black Manta in this movie, but I wish they went a different way with his character. Now, coming off the first movie, he had a great motive for going after Aquaman since his dad died, and the way this movie started, it looked like they were gonna go that direction, but then he slowly got brainwashed by this trident that he found in order to free this new, bigger villain. I just feel like we could have gotten a really cool personal story if it was just Manta going after Aquaman. I feel like there is so much there to flesh out, and it would have been really cool to be able to explore that, and we would have gotten to know Manta on a deeper level. But instead, we got this brainwashed version of him in this big global warming plot, so we really didn't get to go any deeper into Manta's character than we did in the first movie. So in my opinion, that just made him feel like a pawn in a bigger story. Next up for the so-so, I have the CGI. Now, the CGI was passable in this movie, I will say that, but at times, it was definitely not the best. A lot of the underwater scenes, especially the ones with a lot of dialogue, did look like a bunch of floating heads just talking to each other at some points. And also in some of the action scenes, even though the action was good, some of the CGI in that did look a little Play-Doh-y and unfinished. Usually I can give bad CGI a pass, but when you see it and it kind of pulls you out of the movie, that's kind of where I draw the line. And all in all, I guess what I'm trying to say is it was really clear when they were using CGI in this movie, and it was clear when they weren't. And in my opinion, good CGI is when you really can't tell that it's there. And finally, getting into the bad, and the first thing I have here is that there was really no suspense in this movie, even when they tried to have it. Now, in the scenes where there was supposed to be a little bit more suspense and emotion, it just felt like they kind of skipped over it and they only showed it to you because they felt like they had to. And one scene I saw this with is when Manta took Arthur's son. Now, they got to this scene quickly and then they quickly skipped over it. Now, instead of this being a scene with a slow burn where they build up a little suspense on if Arthur is gonna make it in time to save his son, they pretty much just have Manta show up, take the kid, and then cut to Arthur showing up afterwards. Now, this whole sequence took place in under 2 minutes, and in my opinion, this was probably one of the more important parts of the movie, so I just wish they would have stayed on this scene a little longer than they did, just so we could feel that emotional impact of the son being taken by Manta instead of them just screaming no, which is what happened. And also, his father was wounded. Maybe if they would have killed him off, that would have raised the stakes even more, and in my opinion, made that scene hit a little bit harder, because at the end of the day, Arthur's dad didn't really have much to do in this movie, so I would have been okay with them killing him off, because it would have just, again, raised the stakes for the grand finale and made that emotion hit a little bit harder than it did. And next up for the bad, and I just have to say this, but there were moments in this movie where I was just downright bored with what was going on screen. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie did have its moments. It was fun at times, but I'd be lying to you if I said that I didn't check the time multiple times throughout this movie. About halfway through the movie, I checked the time and was shocked that there was a whole hour left in this film, because it definitely felt longer than it actually was. And this could be because of the way they cut this film together. And that kind of leads me into my next point for the bad, and that is that it felt like there were some missing scenes in this movie. Now, this movie definitely jumped around a lot. It did it so much that it felt like some scenes were incomplete, like the scene where Manta took Aquaman's kid. All the choppy editing in this movie really pulled me out of the film. Now, I do understand that this could be because they were trying to cut around Amber Heard, which I will say they did a pretty good job. She really didn't have much to do in this film. They only showed her when they had to, but at the end of the day, all that choppy editing just made this film feel really messy. But overall, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom isn't the best movie, but it does have its moments. Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson were the best part of this film. But other than the action, this movie doesn't have much to offer outside of that. Those are my thoughts on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.